The politicians are getting a pay rise. No matter how useless the Prime Minister can be, no matter how unhelpful many of his ministers are, and no matter how terrible the Treasurer is, they are getting yet another pay rise.
Rage!
If you were just to distribute additional cash to people, you potentially make inflation worse, and therefore
the politicians are getting a pay rise. The third since they came to office. It's the second biggest in a decade. That's because the last one they got was the biggest in the decade. And just after they came to power, they also got a pay rise. That's 3 in a row. Have you got 3 in a row?
No, 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 no.
Australians are really doing it tough. And
the politicians are getting a pay rise.
in order to continue to put that downward pressure on inflation.
that's just called science and maths.
The politicians are getting a pay rise.
That, I think, Australians understand in their guts that that's fair.
And Australians don't like liars. You've got a liar in the lodge.
My mother dreamt of a better life for me, and I hope that my journey in life inspires
The politicians are getting a pay rise.
reach for the stars.
And I tell you what, I say to Elon Musk that
The politicians are getting a pay rise.
It's what Labor governments do.
We will continue to do that.
A great example of us providing cost of living relief.
A Labor government will always look for ways in which we can provide assistance to those in need. We'll do so, of course, though, in a context. The context here is
The politicians are getting a pay rise.
that's my style. I hope you've noticed that. This government has just set up a series of pots. We've seen a whole range of...
The politicians are getting a pay rise.
This is standard procedures.
I think that Australians will shake their head when they think that
The politicians are getting a pay rise.
It's an absolute scam.
Australians should be very conscious of the fact that
Politicians are getting a pay rise.
We want an economy that works for people, not the other way around, and that people who are on minimum wages are doing it tough. The cost of everything is going up, but
Politicians are getting a pay rise. Because they live in the complete other bubble. But then they pretend to understand your problems. They don't. Now, if these politicians were serious, someone, anyone, anywhere would come out and say,
Go yourself.
I don't want it. I don't accept it. Let's do something in the parliament to make sure that they don't happen. But of course, unless the opposition does that, the government won't do it, and surprise, surprise, nobody seems to be interested in sending that real message that they care, that they don't really need the pay rise.
Thereby contempt of the Australian people.
But when the staff around them also get the pay rise, including the person who runs the Prime Minister's department, who will earn $400,000 more than the Prime Minister.
Quite extraordinary what you're telling me.
The public servant, $1 million, the Prime Minister, $600,000.
It's an absolute disgrace. Ripping off the taxpayers.
But it's just an example of how the government spends our money.
Albo, what are you doing here? Oh, come on, Adam, you know me. I never back away from a flight, especially if it's free. This isn't a free flight. Wait, what? You're wasting your own money on this? No, I'm wasting taxpayer money. Oh, good. Good. Oh, fine. Well, if you're going to come, you better fill me up. Whoop. Well, I guess every episode needs a happy ending, eh?
a Labor government will always look for...
Politicians are getting a pay rise.
Get rid of them. Why keep voting for the same idiots all the time? Wake up, people. Stop voting for the same old. You are actually destroying your way of life. Your cost of living is escalating.